Alright, so this week's video is a little bit of an experiment. Basically, some of my Tuesdays are just way too busy, and Tuesday this week is just way too busy, as in like I have a dental appointment, so I'm trying to record this. You know, this is Monday night, the day before. We got Pure Hearted Girl, etc. Absolutely Not for Children on Blu-ray. And then we've got the anime. Yeah, we're doing this little experiment. I do believe only 2 things arrived other than the Hentai Blu-ray, but yeah, at least it's something. Well, actually, I'm trying to remember if this was more than one thing. I think this is only one thing. Oh. Okay. Well, let's flip this over and look at these in the order they arrive. First, we have Food Wars, the 4th plate, aka Season 4. There are too many cooks in this kitchen. Half of them are going down in flames. I can't remember if I watched Season 3 or not. Trying to remember if I remember all the characters here. I mean, he's the main character. I remember her being the really cool girl that was there. Who the devil is she? It looks so familiar. I don't know. I'm not placing it. Oh well. The important things are, it looks like this is still English dubbed. Region A. So it's good to know that, you know, if you've been watching it dubbed, you still get consistent exposure to that. Although I don't remember if this was released on DVD before. It seems to be Blu-ray now. Well, and then, last but not least, we have I Don't Want to Kid, So I'll Max Out My Defense, Season 1. What the fuck did I buy here? This is huge. What the fuck? Okay. And this, of course, sounds like isekai-ish. Although this doesn't look isekai-ish. Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes it sound isekai is to max out my defense, which sounds like an RPG sort of thing. Which usually gives the impression of somebody traveled to another world. All defense, no offense. So it's the studio behind Wise Man's Grandchild, so maybe the studio doesn't make a difference but usually that means that they're trying to make you think of that, and that one was definitely an isekai, so this one gives that impression. I see a region A and a B. I guess that is English and Japanese. Now let's try and find out what the fuck I even have here, because this is not your usual release. In fact, these aren't even wanting to come apart. It's because there's some pretty evil glue here that took off part of my pretty thing. That sucks. Very disappointing. This box contains gaming playmat, art cards, and sticker. I wonder if maybe I could buy a non-limited edition version. This is the gaming mat. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open this, because gaming mats are pretty cool. I have a couple of them that I can take around, and obviously I'm having trouble getting in this, so we're going to have to be very careful here, because we don't want to damage the mat. I think that should do it, just a little. Alright. So what size of gaming mat are we talking about? Oh, and the other thing that makes it sound isekai is, of course, the fact that I don't want to get hurt. It makes it sound like they're not playing an actual RPG. So I guess all of our main characters are girls. And I think the one on the left is our main character who doesn't want to get hurt, so she's maxed out her defense. Oof, let's see. I guess we might as well check out the other things in here, because I don't see a need to put them back. They're not inside the box. So we can just do that real quick. That looks like her shield. Might as well. No, fine. As long as they're all here, it's all cool. I think that's our main character again. Okay, so these two characters, for some reason, are very partnered up. And she are each given 2 cards of their own. So there's those two together, and those two kind of separate but together. You know, a lot of the art here looking very familiar since there's a lot of shared stuff. Well, that was not wanting to come out. Although some of this artwork is different than what we've seen. This is Blu-ray 1. Blu-ray 2. DVD 1. DVD 2. More characters. I think that looks like a guy. Which, you know, is kind of curiosity. You know, it's not very uncommon for a show like this to be mostly about cute girls doing cute things, kind of. But I don't know what it would be like. Well, y'all know I'm a sucker for isekai, so I'll probably fire this up next. Oh well. Well, here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So, Konosuba 2, which did arrive last week. Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, I guess I do this update a little sleepier than usual because it's closer to late at night. But this is pretty much all I watched. I guess I also watched an episode of Hanako-kun. And that episode finished off that disc, and then I ejected, and I had to decide what I was going to do next. And I've just been zony enough that I haven't really put much on. But with my Friday friend, you know, he watched the first season, so second season's here. We might as well watch. We watched the first 5 episodes of this, and it's you know, it's a rewatch for me, and it's fun. I don't really get a good feel for how the dub differed from sub with subtitles. Because when I watched Konosuba 2 myself, I watched it off of Crunchyroll, and it was Japanese with English subtitles. And Season 1 was dubbed, and I had watched Season 1 dubbed because I figured Season 2 was probably dubbed too, because it seemed like all of this had been out forever. Blah, 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 blah. At the end, I transitioned pretty easily from dubbed to sub with English subtitles there, and in here I'm just watching it dubbed, and you know, it's pretty natural. So I can't really say that how the dub compares to the sub, but I can say that the dub is good enough, and that was just an interesting thought in passing, because otherwise the content of the show is actually, I think, some of its best content, at least, is here in Season 2. Like, and I don't mean like everybody's favorite moments would be here, because the show has a lot of really great moments spread throughout all of the 2 seasons as far as I've seen. But when I kind of try and think of summarizing Konosuba in general, I kind of think of that face everybody makes when they're just like, oh, yeah, this is full of shit, isn't it? Just kind of that, I don't know. It's a fun face, and I kind of realized, I think it's a lot more prevalent here in the early version, or in the early episodes of Season 2. Even though it's here and there in Season 1 does all of its fun stuff, and counter-narrative stuff, counter-trope stuff. Very entertaining. But yeah, season 2 has its I think at least this beginning part of season 2 is when the show is completely in its stride, has to keep doing stuff, and has the energy to keep doing stuff, and isn't trying to build up to something per se yet. So, yeah, I kind of remember where it goes after this, but I don't want to think about that too much. Just, you know, entertaining, and I feel like I'm just kind of sitting here holding it, talking about it. Other than that, I did spend a lot of time relaxing because, you know, last weekend wasn't very relaxing with the replacement of the monitor. New monitor is pretty great, but I guess I don't feel like I've been able to do anything really super notable with it, so it's just kind of been there, which is okay. But I was, you know, kind of just zony, meandering, non-focusy, which is unfortunate because, you know, while I'm in the middle of watching some notable anime, No Gun Life probably being one where I really should finish the first season, and also I've got some more Rail Deck stuff, and I'm falling behind on that now officially. You know, sometimes I just take lots of naps. Sunday was really great, just lots of relaxation. Although one thing I did decide to do is a slight organization of some of my Nintendo Switch stuff, and to actually fire up and play Blaster Master Zero. Now, I'm not going to follow up with Blaster Master Zero 2 because this coming Friday is the release date for Monster Hunter Rise. And so I'm going to need to make sure I start doing stuff there, because I'm probably going to stream that with my friends Tuesday next week. And then I'm going to do some stuff with coworkers Wednesday next week, which is unfortunate because that's the same timing that has been announced for the new Among Us map. So I might actually miss that out with other friends, but I can't do everything all at once, which is okay. But basically, short-term, Blast Master Zero, and I'm at the place where I just finished the Stage 6 boss, and I guess I made it to the Stage 6 entrance to begin the trek towards Stage 7. So, the basic idea there is just that, what was I trying to say? I guess I was just trying to think how I should compare Blaster Master and Blaster Master Zero. I wouldn't call myself an expert on the original Blaster Master. I did play it as a kid, and I was the one in our family who figured out where Area 4 is. I kind of very distinctly remember that. I say kind of, like I don't very distinctly remember that, where it was just like, well, eventually, you know, we reached a point where we could beat the Stage 3 boss, and we didn't quite know what to do yet because we couldn't figure out where in Area 3 to go to get to Stage 4, because that was the rule up until that point. And so eventually we just, you know, began kind of meandering and playing around in the game, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to try flying back to that area where you dropped from the very start, because I'm just kind of curious about that. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's something up here, and that turned out to be where Area 4 was. Yay! Maybe that's a spoiler alert, I don't know. If you play Blaster Master Zero, they'll tell you where to go, so it won't be that big of a deal. But the important thing is that, you know, Blaster Master Zero, I'm playing it, and I think it's a pretty nice and much more faithful Blaster Master game than at least Blaster Master 2. My brother was playing that quite a bit, enough so that he finally showed it wherever he was going to be showing that, and he finally put the Sega Genesis away and hooked. I forgot what he hooked up next. But, you know, it's definitely, Blaster Master 2 is definitely an idea of where you can be like, or it's the game that just kind of gives you the understanding that sometimes people are tasked with making games and they don't know the original or can't reproduce the original or something like that. And Blaster Master 2 would have been an okay game on its own. It wouldn't have been a great game. It's definitely made worse by having the Blaster Master name, so it just ends up being compared to the original NES game, because you would kind of hope that if you're making something on a more powerful system, you can make something better. And we've had plenty of games that show that that's not always the case. But the good news is Blaster Master Zero, I would say, maybe not better, but it's definitely a good game on its own. It seems spiritually within line of Blaster Master. Like, one problem with Blaster Master 2 I see when my brother plays it is it doesn't seem to understand that just sitting there and continuously shooting at enemies, even if it's like regular common enemies, isn't really fun or challenging. It's just tedious. And you could say that the tedium is the point, but then I'd point out that Blaster Master wasn't about the tedium. Blaster Master was, well, the name kind of makes you think you should be the master of blast and stuff, and you know, you're going around shooting guns, and you kind of got to feel like your shooting of guns does something, and Blaster Master kind of gives that feeling pretty well. It's a good game for the NES that's also kind of hard, and some of it maybe doesn't feel like it has to be hard, and some of that's just the mechanisms they had at the time, but you know, like Wall 2 is a death sentence sometimes, and that's just the reality of things. Because once you get Wall 2, you have this tendency to accidentally go down walls when you intended to jump because the timing wasn't there. Blaster Master Zero is fixing that by having a wall climbing button that only causes you to climb walls when you actually have it held down, which is good. It means that it's not there. Now, there are a ton of buttons in the game now because there's a lot of stuff to keep track of, but it works fine for that. One thing Blaster Master Zero does that's really nice, in Blaster Master there's a lot of little guy zones you go into, and there's not a whole lot of reason to go into the wrong ones when you know what the right one is, other than if you want to pick up weapon power-ups, but the game feels like it's just too easy to eventually just accidentally lose all your weapon power-ups, and it doesn't matter anymore, and so, you know, you're better off if you know how to play Blaster Master without them, even though for some of us starting newbies, the only way to beat the stage 5 boss is with the full weapon power-up. You're probably not making it there with that. Blaster Master Zero is a lot nicer in that regard, and definitely a lot easier with a lot of this stuff, and encouraging, and it's got more abilities. It's got some stuff that was more unlocked in the original game, and this one you unlock them kind of as you go. It's still not bad though, because you're still kind of building up an arsenal, and I can understand why my brother doesn't like speedrunning it, because yeah, there's a lot of top-down sections that are you outside of the tank. That's just what Blaster Master is like, and there's plenty of optional areas, but you'd have to pick and choose which ones you really want to go for, I guess, to make sure you get certain sub-weapons probably, and it's a little slow and tedious. It's kind of really nice for your first playthrough, but I could see if you play through it again, it's just not as exciting, because right now I'm just having fun melting ice with the fire weapon. You know, it's just like, ha, fuck you bad guys that can only walk on ice. Now there's no ice left for you to walk on. And they just stand in place and burn out. And, you know, it's interesting because there's a bit of a trade-off there. I can kind of understand because my brother likes the faster-paced games. And Blaster Master Zero 2 was actually perfectly good for that because it added a lot of that, but they deliberately patched out certain bugs that didn't really harm players, and it just kind of... I'm not sure how much I respect some of that stuff, because it seems to be a, oh, somebody's finding a different way to play our game, and we better lock it down. And sometimes there's just real funness about being a game just having engine quirks for which behavior kind of comes out of it. Speedrunning Mario is, or is it Speed Demon Mario is kind of iconic of that. That's what makes a lot of Terminal Montage's videos funny, is because, you know, he embraces a lot of that stuff, and so you have wave dashing, fox click, and you have Speed Demon Mario, who's already 4 parallel universes ahead of you. And these are things that only exist because of quirks within the game mechanics that people were able to use and find out. And a lot of them don't really break the game for normal people. You know, if you need to break something like in Super Mario Brothers 2, where there was this one fire boss where if you get split into the smaller guys in an older version of Super Mario Brothers 2, if you get hit while you are throwing a block at the guys, then instead of poofing and being counted as poofed away, they fall off the bottom of the screen, which thinks that it makes the game think they're still alive, but for all intents and purposes to the player, they're dead because they're no longer present on the screen to do anything with. But it means you get soft locked. You just can't, actually, I call it a hard lock because you can't progress at all without shutting the game down. But maybe it's a soft lock. Well, anyways, you know, if you fix a game breaking bug, as in like it breaks people's ability to play the game and they were doing something that can just naturally accidentally happen, that makes sense. But if you have a game like Metroid Prime where you have the dash function built in and you can launch yourself if you're there, they didn't need to fix that. They didn't need to patch that. That's just like, oh, somebody discovered something that we didn't intend with our game engine. We better lock it down. And they locked it down and people found another way to do the same general thing. You just can't do it with the scan dash. You just have to do it with a enemy lock-on or something like that. And it's just like, it comes off as petty and fun-ruining, especially since, like, if people find a way to take advantage of the fact that, oh yeah, if you're up here you can jump down and save and then your vehicle respawns in the location up there, except it's inside the wall and you can do something about it. You can do something with it. You're not stuck doing that. And it's just like, that was actually really neat because it meant that there was a bug in the game that allowed players to streamline the game. Which kind of says that, you know, if you want your game to be good for speedrunning, you probably shouldn't go out of your way to deliberately sabotage attempts for your game to be streamlined. I think Shovel Knight in general is pretty good because, you know, speedrunners are able to kind of streamline it. They're able to say, okay, well, if I enter this screen with this music playing at this time, then the things are going to have this pattern, and they have a path to go through that room with that pattern, and you know that allows them to, you know, break the game's lack of true randomness, but it does mean for a better experience for speedrunners, as well as a better experience for people watching those speedruns, because then you're like, you know, if I had the time and energy, I could probably figure all that out, but I don't, so I'm glad they're doing it and I can just watch them do it. And yeah, it's interesting. So Blaster Master makes me think of speedrunning, but you know, my brother is one of the top Blaster Master speedrunners in, I guess, the world. I'm assuming there aren't other leaderboards out there with better times that are just hidden. But, you know, he's pretty much one of the Blaster Master experts out there, and so I can't help but kind of play it with some of that, but just also playing through Blaster Master Zero as a non-speedrunner and just kind of enjoying the fact that I feel like the game is fair and it wants me to be able to figure out, oh yeah, we're throwing this boss at you and we want you to figure out how to beat them, and yeah, we want you to see the rest of the story. The story shouldn't be something that it's only hold back for the best players in the world. You know, let people experience the story they've created. And I wouldn't say it's the best story in the world, but you know, it's a pretty nice one where it's just like, it's kind of a combination of the English and the Japanese versions of the original Blaster Master, which are weirdly unconsolatable. Well, I don't know how you would be able to think that you could combine them, and I don't think Blaster Master Zero does, but it's definitely like taking ideas from those, as well as I think the Nintendo books that were, you know, book versions of NES games. I remember reading the Blaster Master 1 of that. And Alex isn't there anymore. I think he was in the Japanese version, and there was no Eve, but you know, they've mixed those together. And I never played the Blaster Master for the Wii Virtual Store, and I'm curious about it. But Blaster Master Zero's here now, and it's working fine. You know, I actually had good expectations going into it, just because Blaster Master Zero 2 is such a great sequel, continuation of Blaster Master sort of stuff. Even if I'm not sure if the story necessarily is. You know, the game mechanics, the power-ups and all that stuff are just like... That game understands that you shouldn't be playing the game and getting 16 keys as most of your items, which I think, you know, that's an over-exaggeration of what Blaster Master 2 does, but... You know, you should get something that, you know, makes it fun to drive a jumping tank. And, like, Blaster Master 02 also has this mechanism where you can recharge energy by dropping down on the ground, which, you know, jumping involves dropping, so it kind of seems like this good idea that I suspect when I fire up and play it's going to feel as nice as it looks. Like, it's just something that you're like, yeah, I want to do this. And, you know, overall that means Blaster Master 02 has good ideas, I think. And so I was expecting Blaster Master 0, knowing that it was a bit slower from the speedrunning. How have I been talking about this for so long? This is one of the problems of recording the night before. And part of the reason it has to be at the night before is, at least this week, so I call it shaving, but it's really just taking a beard trimmer with no clips and buzzing the hair as short as it can get. So I shave once every other week. And conceptually I've always done it the night before I record these videos so that the hair is in as good a condition. But of course, you know, that means that my timing for tonight is based on when I would be doing that, and the other problem with that is this hair does not take, it does not dry out pretty fast. Even now, it's probably still a little, maybe not moist, but you can probably tell, yeah, it looks like he maybe got out of the shower a little bit ago. And yeah, it's been an hour and a half or 2 hours, but anyways, that's why I feel a little zombie-ish, but hopefully this works out. Tomorrow I process the video and upload it to YouTube at my normal times, even though a couple hours of the day where I normally record this are completely gone tomorrow just because of I've got some dental fillings to do. Well, I mean, you don't have to do them, but you want to do them because it helps your teeth and mouth and stuff last longer if you've reached a state where you really do need those fillings. So, yeah. Basically, I'm taking care of that instead of recording this video, thus recording this video earlier, which had to be timed later in the day because of the timing of this was the week when I would do the shaving, and as you can see, I just make things complicated for myself, and I don't seem to have an off switch, which means I should probably end this here. Yeah, I think I should. So, yeah, hopefully next week I'll have some Monster Hunter Rise, and I'll have some maybe additional thoughts about playing it over the weekend, hopefully. But otherwise, y'all, have a nice week.